Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we are talking about Mario and Luigi Brothership. The game is coming out later this week on November 7th, and today, reviews have been published for this game, and the opinions, well, they're kind of mixed. Overall, the game is very positive. It has a 80 on Metacritic, which I would say is pretty fantastic, great news. Most consider this to be a good game. But there are some reviews in there that are dragging down the score a little bit, including what many people are talking about, a review from IGN. They have given the game a 50 out of 100. This is the lowest review score out of the current 57 I see on Metacritic. So what are they saying and how does it compare to everyone else? Is there some truth here? So taking a look at the review summary from IGN, Mario and Luigi Brothership is an incredibly disappointing return for an RPG series I've always loved. Apart from the combat, it fundamentally misunderstands its own past success, and completely fumbles Luigi's role in puzzle solving and exploration by making him more of a pain than a partner. The story is simplistic and unoriginal, its attempts at humor fall flat, and the overly chatty writing holds your hand to a ridiculous degree. It's not a total disaster, as the excellent flashy turn-based battles are some of the best this series has ever had, but even those somehow manage to wear thin as the repetitive final act crawls across the finish line of this roughly 34-hour campaign, which suffers from surprisingly bad performance issues nearly the entire time. The Switch has been home to many triumphant revivals for Nintendo, but the Mario and Luigi series has sadly missed the boat. So again, let me stress that this review is the most negative review out of all reviews on Metacritic for this game. All other reviews I've seen suggest very different things. But I do want to say I appreciate the pun here at the end, but the Mario and Luigi series sadly missed the boat. You explore the game on a boat, a giant boat, the Brothership, so I appreciate the pun. That said, what they say here I do find to be, well, out of the ordinary. And of course, they are welcome to their opinion. But let's take a look at other IGN reviews, because there are other sectors of IGN throughout the world. Like here, for example, Mario and Luigi Brothership feels like the series never left. Alpha Dream may no longer be at the helm, but Acquire respectfully takes up the mantle. The lighthearted humor, interesting characters, world building, and recognizable gameplay all feel as familiar as ever. Yet, despite the enjoyment I had throughout the lengthy storyline, the poor performance leaves a bitter aftertaste that will stay with me. So there is a little bit of crossover here. They both mention that there are performance issues, but everything else that this person talks about is high praise for the game. It still retains the magic of the prior games. It's fun to explore and experience, and it's a lengthy one at that. Speaking on the frame rate issue though, I'm not a fan of it. I don't like hearing that these big Nintendo games are having frame rate issues. Now, what's interesting about this is that we're hearing about this for other Nintendo games throughout this year, like, say, for example, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. And simply based off what I've heard from the different reviews of Brothership in comparison to what I experienced of Echoes of Wisdom and what I've seen other people talk about in regards to Echoes of Wisdom seems to have more of a jarring frame rate issue. And while I did definitely notice it a lot in Echoes of Wisdom, I still ultimately enjoyed my experience, and I don't think the frame rate issue impacted it too much, personally. So I'm sort of expecting the same for Brothership. And before going forward here, let me just briefly ask that if you've gotten to this point, and you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell. But here is another IGN review of the game. Mario and Luigi Brothership brings fresh humor and plenty of creativity to this somewhat forgotten RPG series, with a combat system that's fun and interactive. Exploring the world of Concordia offers a true sense of adventure and a uniquely charming Nintendo experience that many will enjoy, though the game's pacing and rhythmic battles may not appeal to everyone. And I think what they say here is most important. The game's pacing and rhythmic battles may not appeal to everyone. Everyone's going to have different opinions and are going to respond to this game differently. But after looking at these different reviews, reading through them, watching different videos on all the reviews, my general sense of the game is this. If you are a fan of prior Mario and Luigi games, then odds are you're going to find a sense of familiarity with this one. There is quite a bit of variety to the environments. This is a vibrant, positive adventure. The expressiveness of both Mario and Luigi, their bond together, that is likely going to be one of the high points for most. And the combat feels as good as ever, and in some ways might feel better, because both Mario and Luigi are more involved with all the different moves, and there's a lot you can do, especially as you progress throughout the game and you expand on your battle plugs. And in terms of overall length, I've heard different things. But for the most part, I'm getting the sense that this game is taking different critics about somewhere between 40 to 50 hours. And if you were to focus on 100%ing the game to do all the different side quests, which many people have said the side quests are fun and there's a lot to do, but you won't be able to do all of them in most cases. If you were to, we could be looking at something approaching a 60-hour campaign here. So this is a meaty experience. Now, as we brought up with that very negative IGN review, they complain about how the final third of the game isn't very good, the pacing isn't very good. But I've heard different things from other places that the final part of the game is actually really good, and it's the middle of the game that perhaps may drag on just a little bit. And so there has been some consistency that I've seen from the critics, is that the experience of the story may drag on for some. And me personally, thinking about my experience with Mario and Luigi, which isn't that much, I recently got into this series, and I've been playing through the original over the last few months. But based off what I've experienced and also what I'm hearing from here, it sounds like we're looking at something fairly similar here. There's going to be a lot of dialogue, there's going to be a lot of characters chatting, and if you're not into it, then it may drag for you. Many critics have brought up how this game seems to be geared towards a younger audience. And what this appears to mean is that there's definitely a bit of hand-holding throughout the experience. It isn't hard to progress certain areas, and sometimes they spend a while sort of teasing or hinting at exactly what you're supposed to do, when most players that are of a more mature age aren't going to need all that extra help. But I've also heard that you can speed through a lot of cutscenes. You can't skip them, but you can speed through it. You don't have to waste as much time on them. And when you do get into the side quests for different characters, they are fairly involved, so there is some depth to the world and the characters there. And when it comes to the combat, there is some difficulty. There has been some challenge, and if for whatever reason you're not into that challenge, then you can bring down the difficulty. And just going back to how we have a little bit of conflicting opinions when it comes to this game, that really low score from IGN, that 50, I noticed how they talked about how it was a 34-hour campaign for them, but then most others seem to have taken a bit longer. The difference isn't substantial, but I have to wonder that maybe they didn't enjoy listening through all the cutscenes and things of that nature, and perhaps they were more interested in finishing the game as quickly as possible. And so there's two different sides to this conversation. Some people have suggested that maybe Mario and Luigi Brothership shouldn't be this long of a campaign. Maybe it should be a bit shorter, something a bit more concise. But on the flip side, for those who enjoy the Mario and Luigi formula, more game is more game, and thus a good thing. But if you're really into a good story that's well paced, then you may take some issues with this game. However, what I have heard, as I mentioned earlier, the end of the game is very strong. Ultimately though, my perspective is that this game is going to be a good time. I am a little bit concerned about having to listen to all these chat boxes and dialogues and cutscenes. I can see myself getting a little bit tired of that. But when I look at the variety to the environments being launched around these different islands, the more involved Mario and Luigi combinations in the combat, and just this overall theme of building connections and Mario and Luigi and their expressiveness and the brothership, that to me has me very interested and eager for this game, and most people seem to agree given that it's an 80 on Metacritic. Which, by the way, I would just like to say that this is a bit heartwarming because after Alpha Dream went bankrupt, we weren't sure we would ever see Mario and Luigi again. And now here we are getting a Mario and Luigi game. It is, for the most part, considered to be a pretty good game to most people. And not only have we seen the return of the series, but the return of the series is now also a home console experience given that the Switch is a hybrid system. So I'm excited. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.